Good day. Good day. Good day.
Okay, maybe let's get seated. And let me just make sure that everybody who's here has signed their names on the attendance register, please. We will start in about 60 seconds time. And Spiwe, have we distributed the program? Okay. I think by my watch it's 10 o'clock now. Good morning, everybody. Let me first of all greet the chairperson of Umalusi Council, Professor Umalusi Balim, seated next to me. Dr. Mafuda Gometsi, who is the CEO of Umalusi, next to Prof. Balim. Next to Dr. Gometsi is Dr. Ivasuji, Executive Manager for the Quality Assurance and Monitoring Branch of Umalusi. We have next to Dr. Suji, Mr. Emmanuel Sibanda, who is the Executive Manager responsible for the Qualifications and Research Branch. And next to Mr. Sibanda, we have the CFO of Umalusi, Mr. Hendrik van der Walt. Next to Mr. van der Walt, we have Mary-Louise Madalani, Senior Manager for Quality Assurance of Assessment Unit, responsible for schools qualifications. And then we have Dr. Antoinette Liwayo, Senior Manager responsible for Quality Assurance of Assessment for post-schools qualifications. My name is Bikile Potter. I'm the Program Director for today. The program has been distributed to everybody. We are gathered here for Umalusi to make a pronouncement on the 2023 end of the year examinations. In terms of the program, we will allow the CEO of Umalusi to give his opening remarks. Thereafter, we will then ask Professor Umalusi Balim to read the approval statement of Umalusi Council. Thereafter, we will then open the floor for questions and comments. And then we will conclude with the vote of thanks to be given by Mr. Emmanuel Sibanda. Without further ado, I am now going to hand over to Dr. Mafuda Gometsi to give the opening remarks. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leporta, Program Director. I'm going to acknowledge the presence of the following people. Professor Umalusi Balim, Chairperson of Umalusi Council. Also acknowledge again the members of the panel, Executive Managers Emmanuel Sibanda and Dr. Ivasuji, and our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Hendrik van der Walt. Representatives of the 4 assessment bodies, the Department of Basic Education, the Department of Higher Education and Training, led by DDG Sam Zungu, Independent Examinations Board, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, SACAI, Umalusi senior managers, journalists from different media houses, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. I'd like to firstly express our deep appreciation to all the media houses that are present here today. I would also like to acknowledge the journalists and media houses that have joined online. Your presence is a guarantee that the message of this briefing will reach everyone across the length and breadth of our country. Welcome to this media briefing organized to make a pronouncement on the 2023 end of year national examination results. These are the results of the examinations that were administered by the public and private assessment bodies between October and December 2023 in respect of the National Senior Certificate, NSC, assessed by the Department of Basic Education, the Independent Examinations Board, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. National Certificate Vocational NCV levels 2 to 4 assessed by the Department of Higher Education and Training. NATAD Report 190, 191, N2 to N3 assessed by the Department of Higher Education and Training. General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Basic Education and Training, GTC ABET, assessed by the Department of Higher Education and Training, the Independent Examinations Board, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. Before I get into the business of the day, let me use the opportunity to announce with great sadness the passing away of 4 colleagues who were giants in their own right in the assessment and quality assurance system of our country, South Africa. They are Dr. Fred Kalitz, who served as the Executive Officer of the South African Certification Council, which was the forerunner to Umalusi. Prof. Kalitz passed away on 20 October 2023. Dr. Morgan Naidu, who served as a member of the Assessment Standards Committee of Council during 2018 to 2022, passed away on 1 December 2023. Professor Peliwe Lolwana, the founding Chief Executive Officer of Umalusi, passed away on the 17th of December 2023. Professor Sichaba Mahlomahulu, former member of Umalusi Council and the Umalusi Research Forum, who passed away this past Saturday, 13 January 2023. May their souls rest in peace. Another matter worth mentioning is that this is the last media briefing for Marie-Louise Madalani, Senior Manager for Quality Assurance of Assessment, School Qualifications. She will be going on retirement in May 2024. We thank Marie-Louise Madalani for the contribution that she has made to Umalusi in the various roles that she played over the years, 19 years to be specific. Program Director, I find it necessary to provide the public with an update on the progress made in connection with the problem of selling and buying of fake and/or fraudulent certificates, something that was covered widely in the media over the last 6 months. Since the State of Readiness media briefing held on 13 October 2023, during which we, amongst others, informed the public about the safeguards implemented to ensure the authenticity and credibility of Umalusi certificate. Umalusi has got no business with fake certificates. Fake certificates, colleagues, are issued by scammers or fraudsters who are not employees of Umalusi. We advise all employers, both in the public and private sectors, to consider verifying their current and future employees' qualifications through the verification agencies whose contact details are available on the website of Umalusi, www.umalusi.org.za. On the landing page, you simply click on the certification and verification icon. Returning to the business of today, on 13 October 2023, we declared publicly that the public and private assessment bodies were ready to conduct, administer, and manage the 2023 end-of-year national examinations. We gave a full account with reasoning in terms of how Umalusi arrived at the overall conclusion that the system was ready. We are here today, as I've said already, to make a pronouncement on the outcome of Umalusi's quality assurance processes for the 2023 national examination results of both the public and private assessment bodies. The pronouncement is based on the outcomes of the quality assurance processes that Umalusi conducted during the examination writing and marking processes between October and December 2023. Umalusi draws its mandate in relation to quality assurance of exit level national examinations from the General and Further Education and Training Quality Assurance Act 58 of 2001 as amended in 2008. The Act confers a range of powers and functions on Umalusi in respect of all the qualifications on the sub-framework of qualifications NQF levels 1 to 4. Those functions include the external moderation of assessments and examinations conducted by all public and private Umalusi accredited assessment bodies, and standardizing examinations marks during the standardization process. Accordingly, Umalusi, my apologies for that. Accordingly, Umalusi had, prior to the commencement of the examinations, externally moderated and approved question papers, practical assessment tasks, school-based assessment tasks, site-based assessment, common assessment tasks, and portfolios. Internal continuous assessment portfolios, reviewed integrated summative assessment tasks, and the conduct of the ISET. Subsequently, Umalusi audited the state of readiness of the system to conduct, administer, and manage the examinations. During the examination writing and marking phases, Umalusi monitored a selection of examination centers, participated in marking guideline standardization meetings in sampled subjects, conducted verification of quality of marking at selected marking centers based on sampled scripts, and verified the quality of marking in sampled subjects. Post the marking processes, the marks achieved by learners were submitted to Umalusi for standardization purposes. All these processes were conducted for private and public assessment bodies. This clearly signals that Umalusi is entrusted with a very important task of assuring the quality of the entire value chain of the national examination process. That is why, on the occasion of the official opening of this Tuto Mfundo building on 5 September 2023, the Minister of Basic Education, Me-Enji Motshekga, remarked as follows, and I quote him: "Members of the Umalusi Council bear a significant responsibility, guided by the legal frameworks, to consistently prioritize the organization's mission. Their decisions are pivotal in upholding the quality of education in South Africa. I am optimistic that the Council's future endeavors will further elevate our standards and enrich our educational strategies." Close quotation. This year, Umalusi had the privilege of performing standardization processes under the observation of officials from the Examinations Council of Zambia, ECZ. The colleagues from ECZ spent the whole week observing carefully how Umalusi conducts its standardization process relative to their approach, which is called grading. In their system, they talk about grading. Their attendance of our meetings affirmed Umalusi's publicly stated position that standardization processes are open to the scrutiny of peers on the continent and across the world. Nationally, the process was observed by senior officials representing the following organizations: Universities South Africa, USF, the South African Qualifications Authority, SAQA, the South African Council for Educators, SACE, the South African Democratic Union, SATU, National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, NAPTOSA, South African Public Colleges Organization, SAPCO, and the South Afrikaanse Onderwys-Unie, SAOU. For Umalusi, the attendance of standardization meetings by observers from different stakeholder organizations gives credibility to the process. Regrettably, other stakeholders such as the National Teachers Union, NATU, was inadvertently omitted from these important national processes. We apologize for the omission and will ensure the correction of this in future. The foregoing quality assurance processes were conducted to serve the best interest of over 1,150,000 candidates. Of that number, the NSC accounts for nearly 920,000 candidates, or 80%. The remaining 20% of the candidates are distributed across the NCV levels 2 to 4, NATED N2 to N3, and GET examinations. The specifics will be given by Professor Balim in the approval statement. During the State of Readiness media briefing, Umalusi did highlight load shedding, community protests, and cheating as some of the factors that posed a risk to the smooth running of the examinations. We are happy to report that all assessment bodies heeded the advice given to make alternative arrangements for the supply of power during the writing of examinations to mitigate the effects of load shedding. Regarding community protests, the reports we have received show that there were no widespread cases of community protests that may have prevented candidates from writing the examinations. We would like to thank the South African public for heeding the call to protect the delicate processes that our learners have to go through during the examination phase. It is our belief that the fairest thing to do for the young people of our country is to create a conducive environment for them to demonstrate their true educational potential through the examination process. Umalusi appreciates the efforts of all the 4 assessment bodies for ensuring that candidates were shielded from all forms of hindrances. That gives the assurance that there was no compromise to the 2023 end-of-year national examinations integrity and credibility. Program Director, as I conclude, I would like to highlight some areas that are a concern to Umalusi. Firstly, we have previously cautioned members of the public against registering to write the examinations at unaccredited private centers or institutions. We continue to urge the public to visit the Umalusi website, and I repeat it again, www.umalusi.org.za, to access a list of all private institutions accredited to offer any Umalusi associated qualifications. You'll find useful information to assist you to verify if an independent school or a private college is accredited before you can register with it. Alternatively, you can call us on 012-349-1510 and press the relevant option. I repeat, 012-349-1510. It is crucially important for us all not to allow unregistered and unaccredited institutions to thrive at the expense of unsuspecting candidates. The second area of concern relates to printing errors or poor print quality in some of the question papers, for which I would like to cite the following examples. There was an omission of a subscript on the formula of an organic compound in question 2.2, 3 marks of Physical Sciences, paper 2 of the Department of Basic Education. In the Northwest Province, the same Physical Sciences, paper 2 had missing grid lines in question 3.5, 6 marks. The 3 civil technology specializations, civil service, construction and woodworking, in both the English and Afrikaans versions, had major printing errors in Limpopo. The poor print quality in the civil services specialization affected questions worth 60 marks in the English version and 62 marks in the Afrikaans version. In construction, questions worth 31 marks in the English version and 14 marks in the Afrikaans version were affected. The marks affected in the woodworking specialization were 22 and 26 for English and Afrikaans, respectively. Aside from printing quality, we'd like to raise translation quality as something that needs careful attention. Due to poor quality of translation from English to Afrikaans, candidates could not respond to questions 325 and 326, worth 3 marks in the Afrikaans version of Geography Paper 1 of the Department of Basic Education. Thirdly, it is regrettable that one of the questions in the Mathematical Literacy Paper 1 of the Department of Basic Education naively used the words mandatory Palestine. This was caused by the examiners and moderators being unaware of the political connotations of the words. Umalusi appreciates the fact that the DBE, Department of Basic Education, issued an apology in this regard. Similarly, question 513, 2 marks in the Mandarin Paper 1 that was administered by the Independent Examinations Board, IEB, was found to be culturally exclusive in that it referred to a unit of measure that is used in China, but not in Taiwan or Hong Kong. Equally concerning is the fact that 64 candidates who wrote isiZulu, first additional language, paper 2 under the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, SACAI, had not been informed that the new poems and short stories would be introduced for the November 2023 examinations. Consequently, the candidates had been prepared for the examinations based on outdated set works. To mitigate the possible impact of the above errors on performance of candidates, the questions concerned were excluded from the marking process and the marks achieved upscaled using conversion tables. Notwithstanding that, Umalusi urges all role players to put in place stringent measures to prevent the recurrence of errors like these that I've referred to. This is because being fair to candidates means, among other things, being able to foresee and address any factor that may result in candidates performing poorly due to no faults of their own. Umalusi is concerned about previous cases of irregularities that remain unresolved to date. We urge the assessment bodies concerned to give this matter the agency that it deserves. Whilst there may be a reduction in the number of reported cases of group copying, Umalusi is seriously concerned about the group copying cases that have been detected by the DBE in 2023, which involves 945 national senior certificate candidates. These cases are not yet resolved because the numbers are still being verified. Of the total 763 cases, which is 80.7%, were detected in KwaZulu-Natal, and 164 cases, which constitute 17.7%, were detected in Mpumalanga. Professor Balim will explain in the approval statement how cases of this nature are dealt with. Umalusi is extremely encouraged by the fact that there were no detected cases of paper leakages. No papers were leaked in these examinations. And we say the examinations have therefore not been compromised in terms of their credibility and integrity. We are very grateful to all role players for tightening up the entire value chain, including the work done by the State Security Agency in relation to the places where question papers were printed, packaged, and stored. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. Thanks for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO. We will now move on to the approval statement, which will be read by Professor Jonas Balim. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Mbiki, and thank you to the CEO for that initial statement. I want to,
Sorry,
I guess they'll all hear me.
should I move? Thank you. They say I should move them.
Okay.
Sorry, Prof.
Moving easy if I moved.
Oh, move the mics.
Yeah, thank you. And this one goes like this. Yeah.
All okay?
Everybody happy? Okay.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone, and may I acknowledge the CEO of Umalusi, Dr. Mafura Kometsi, Umalusi senior management and staff, the representatives of the examining authorities in the room, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. The Genfetco Act that Dr. Rakometsi referred to earlier assigns to Umalusi a range of powers and functions, including approval of the publication of the results of learners if the council, that is the Umalusi Council, is satisfied that the assessment body or the education institution has conducted the assessment free from any irregularity that may jeopardize the integrity of the assessment outcomes, has complied with the requirements prescribed by the Council for conducting assessments, has applied the standards prescribed by the Council with which a learner is required to comply in order to obtain a certificate, and has complied with every other condition determined by the Council. In respect of the examination standards, the Assessment Standards Committee of the Umalusi Council held its meetings between the 19th of December 2023 and the 5th of January 2024 to standardize the 2023 end-of-year national examination results. The ASC, that's the Assessment Standards Committee, conducted a careful analysis of the results for each of the 511 subjects spread across 4 assessment bodies and qualifications, and that broke down into 151 subjects for the NSC, 264 for the National Certificate Vocational, 56 subjects for the N2 and N3 qualifications, and 40 for the GETC Adult Basic Education and Training qualification. The ASC applied their minds to arrive at standardization's decisions. The process is detailed and rigorous and is guided by standardization principles, which are supported by statistical and narrative reports. The standardization principles are a matter of public knowledge, and I will not speak to their detail. If anyone is interested in the standardization principles, please approach Umalusi to request a copy. The final standardization decisions were presented for consideration of the Executive Committee of the Umalusi Council during its meetings held on the 9th and 12th of January 2024 to approve the release of the results. The standardization and approval processes are conducted to safeguard the integrity and credibility of all the results presented. I will now present the approval decisions of Exco of Council for each of the assessment bodies. I will start with the results for the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, SACAI, move on to the Independent Examinations Board, the IEB, followed by the Department of Education and Training, and then conclude with the results of the Department of Basic Education. Ladies and gentlemen, the statements I'm reading are fairly detailed, and I'm sorry that I'm going to be a little bit pedantic, but I have to go through this process here. The SACAI, starting with SACAI, SACAI is one of the two private assessment bodies accredited by Umalusi. SACAI has for the second year in succession conducted and managed the 2023 examinations as a fully accredited assessment body after Umalusi granted it full accreditation status to assess the General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Education and Training, and the National Senior Certificate, NSC, with effect from 1st of October 2022. So starting with the GETC ABET standardization decisions, the SACAI administered the examinations to 257 candidates at 26 examination centers. This represents a decrease of 117 candidates, or 31.3% from last year's total of 374 candidates. Concerning standardization decisions, all the learning areas had their results accepted as raw results. This was also the case in 2022. I will make a point about accepting raw results a little later. The details of the accreditation decisions are in the document that will be circulated to all of you a little later. Can I then turn to the approval statement for the release of the GETC ABET results from SACAI? And this is as it reads: having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute policy for GETC ABET external examinations. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Basic Education and Training examinations administered by the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. Exco of Council approves the release of the SACAI November 2023 GETC ABET examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the SACAI is required to nullify the results of the candidates implicated in irregularities. Umalusi emphasizes the importance of submitting data sets for standardization and resulting within the stipulated timeframes. The SACAI is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. Exco of Council commends the SACAI for conducting a successful examination. Turning now to the National Senior Certificate standardization for SACAI, the SACAI administered the NSC examinations in 25 subjects to 5,826 candidates at 103 examination centers. Compared to 2022, Sakai saw a candidate increase of 874 or 17.7% in 2023. After considering all the evidence available at the time of standardization of the results, the ASC arrived at the following decisions. Raw marks were accepted for 14 subjects, or 56% of the group. Results in 7 subjects were adjusted mainly upwards, and the results in the remaining 4 subjects were adjusted mainly downwards. That really says that 56%, as I said, of the raw marks that Sakai presented were accepted. Moving from 2022 to 2023, there were no significant changes in the directions of adjustment made to Sakai examinations. Since some stakeholders may be interested to know the actual standardization decisions per subject, you will find in the document that was given to you a tabulation of the standardization decisions for each of the specific subjects, whether the raw mark was accepted, whether the adjustment was mainly upward, or whether the adjustment was mainly downward. And I'd now like to move to the approval statement for the release of the NSC results for Sakai. It reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the National Senior Certificate examinations. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 National Senior Certificate examinations administered by the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. EXCO of Council therefore approves the release of the Sakai November 2023 National Senior Certificate examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the Sakai is required to nullify the results of the candidates implicated in the irregularities. Umalusi is concerned about Sakai's failure to inform candidates about the change in the set works for isiZulu, first additional language, paper 2, involving poems and short stories. Furthermore, Umalusi emphasizes the importance of submitting data sets for standardization and resulting within the specified timeframes. The Sakai is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and submit an improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. Again, EXCO of Council commends the Sakai for conducting a successful examination. I turn now to the standardization and approval decisions for the Independent Examinations Board, and starting with the GETC ABET standardization decisions for the IEB. The IEB's 2023 GETC ABET examinations were written by 585 candidates at 70 examination centers. This represents an increase of 25.3% or 118 candidates from last year's 467 who wrote at 58 centers. The results of the 7 learning areas were standardized as follows. Raw marks were accepted for 4 of the learning areas. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 1 of the learning areas, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 1 of the learning areas, and mainly upward adjustments were made in 2 of the learning areas. Again, the details are on the sheet that you will receive. I turn to the approval statement for the release of GETC ABET results from IEB. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the IEB policy on the conduct, administration, and management of examinations. There were no irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 GETC ABET examinations administered by the IEB. EXCO of Council approves the release of the IEB November 2023 GTC ABET examination results. The IEB is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and submit the improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the IEB for conducting a successful examination. I turn now to the National Senior Certificate Standardization decisions for the IEB. A total of 15,186 candidates, of which 13,968 were full-time and 1,218 were part-time, wrote the NSC examinations at 275 examination centers under the IEB in 2023. Compared to 2022, the candidature increased by 1,650 candidates, or 12.2%, while the number of examination centers increased by 3. IEB presented 60 subjects for standardization, and after consideration of the available evidence, raw marks were accepted for 48 of those subjects, which is 80%. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 12 subjects, that is 20%, and no subject was adjusted downwards. There are two noteworthy points from the figures that you will see when you get the document. The first is that for the first time since 2019, no subject was adjusted downwards. That's an important moment. The second point is that the number of subjects for which raw marks were accepted has been steadily increasing since 2021. And again, the detail of each of the 60 subjects will be available for you in the document that you will receive. If I can then read the approval statement for the release of the NSC results for the IEB. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the National Senior Certificate examinations. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 National Senior Certificate examinations administered by the Independent Examinations Board. EXCO of Council approves the release of the IEB November 2023 National Senior Certificate examination results. In respect of the identified irregularities, the IEB is required to nullify the results of candidates implicated in irregularities. The IEB is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit an improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the IEB for conducting a successful examination. I now turn to the standardization and approval decisions for the DHET. This section of the approval statements focuses on 3 sets of results of the examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. These are the General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Basic Education and Training, National Certificate Vocational, or what is called the NCV, levels 2 to level 4, and the NATED Report 190/191, N2 and N3 examinations. I'm going to start with the GTC ABET standardizations decision for the DHET. In 2023, the number of candidates who wrote the examinations increased by 3.4% to 38,022 candidates, in comparison with the 36,742 candidates who wrote in 2022. The DHET presented results in 26 learning areas, and the following standardization decisions were made. Raw marks were accepted in 11 learning areas. 8 learning areas were adjusted mainly upwards, and 7 learning areas were adjusted mainly downwards. The approval, if I now turn to the approval statement for the release of the GETC ABET results for the DHET, having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the examinations of colleges established, declared, or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act of 2006. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 GETC ABET examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. EXCO Council therefore approves the release of the DHET November 2023 GETC ABET examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the DHET is required to block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. Notwithstanding the evidence of improvements, Umalusi remains concerned, as in November 2022, about the high number of reported irregularities. The DHET is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. EXCO Council commends the DHET for conducting a successful examination. I now turn to the NCV, National Certificate Vocational Levels 2 to 4 Standardizations Decisions. The 2023 NCV Levels 2 to 4 examinations were written at 255 examination centers by 133,718 candidates compared to the 164,898 candidates that were registered to write the examinations. This represents an absenteeism rate of 18.9%, or 31,180 candidates who didn't turn up to write the exams. Because of the introduction of 3 new subjects in 2023, and these were basic principles of computer programming and computer literacy, electronics and digital concepts for robotics, and a subject called Robotics Fundamentals. A total of 264 instructional offerings were submitted for standardizations last year. The standardization decisions taken are that raw marks were accepted for 170 of those subjects, or 64.5%. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 57 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made for 37 subjects. The number of subjects for which raw marks were accepted has increased to 170 this year from 146 in 2022. This is an increase of 16.4%, or 24 subjects. And the reason we focus on raw scores that are accepted is that a year-on-year increase in the number of subject results for which raw marks are accepted is a sign of a maturing system. In other words, the results that are presented with so much integrity and confidence in the results obtained that the Assessment Standards Committee is satisfied that these marks do not need adjustment. And that is, as we say, a sign of a maturing system that is better able to regulate itself. And this, of course, is highly commendable. If I can read the approval statement for the release of the NCV results for the DHET, having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the examination of colleges, established, declared, or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 National Certificate Vocational Examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. EXCO of Council therefore approves the release of the DHET November 2023 NCV Level 2 to Level 4 examination results. The DHET is required to, in respect of identified irregularities, block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. To block the results of candidates and centers that fail to comply with the ICAS and ISAT requirements, pending the outcomes of further investigations by the DHET and verification by Umalusi. Address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment Report and submit the improvement plan by 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the DHET for conducting a successful examination and recommends that the DHET takes the necessary step to ensure the continued integrity of the National Certificate Vocational Qualification. If I now turn to the N2 and N3 standardization decisions for the DHET, and I want to use this opportunity to remind the public that in terms of the Government Gazette signed by the Minister of Higher Education and Training on the 25th of August 2023, the last opportunity for registering for the NATED Report 191 N1 to N3 programs was the 31st of December 2023. As from the 1st of January 2024, the N1 and N3 programs have entered a phase-out period. The details of this phase-out process are available from the Department of Higher Education and Training if anybody is interested. This year's N2, N3 examinations were written by 58,190 candidates, 31,332 for the N2, and 26,858 for the N3. This was written at 429 examination centers. Considering that 68,916 candidates were enrolled, which is an expression of intention to write, the actual number of candidates who eventually wrote represents an absenteeism rate of 15.6%, or 10,726 candidates. Of the 57 instructional offerings that were submitted by the DHET for standardization, Umalusi did not standardize motor trade theory N2. The reason is that the DHET administered an incorrect question paper to 850 candidates who wrote at 98 out of the 100 examination centers. It was only candidates at one center each in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal who wrote the correct version of the question paper. Consequently, the DHET has arranged for this instructional offering to be rewritten on the 6th of February 2024. Thereafter, the results will be submitted to Umalusi for standardization and approval. The following decisions were taken for the 56 instructional offerings that were standardized. Raw marks were accepted for 32 of the subjects. Mainly upward adjustment was made in 13 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 11 subjects. And of course, one subject was not standardized. I'll then read the approval statement for the release of the N2 and N3 results for the DHET. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the examination of colleges, established, declared, or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act. The irregularities identified during writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 NATED Report 190-191 Engineering Studies N2 and 3 examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. EXCO of Council therefore approves the release of the DHET November 2023 NATED N2 and 3 examination results. The DHET is required to, in respect of identified irregularities, block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. They are required to nullify the November 2023 Motor Trade Theory N2 examination results. They must also block the results of candidates and centres that fail to comply with the ICAS requirements, pending the outcome of further investigations by the DHET and verification by Umalusi. They must develop a strategy to address the recurring irregularities that emanate mainly from private colleges and report on progress to Umalusi. Submit a report on the action taken against officials implicated in irregularities and address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and submit the improvement plan by 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the DHET for conducting a successful examination. In the final section of the statement, we look at the National Senior Certificate Examination results from the Department of Basic Education. And this, considering the standardization decisions, the DBE administered in 2023 and in the 2023 NSC examinations to 898,520 candidates. Of this number, 717,377 candidates were full-time, while around 181,000 candidates were part-time. In comparison with last year's total of 921,879 candidates, 2023 recorded a decrease of 3%, or around 23,000 candidates. The examination was written at 6,889 centres, and examination scripts were marked at 190 marking centres. The DBE presented a total of 66 subject results for standardization, and after careful consideration of the narrative and statistical evidence available, the Assessment Standards Committee made the following decisions. Raw marks were accepted for 49 subjects, that is about 74.2%. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 6 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 11 subjects. These figures, and the figures that you'll see on the table, show an upward trend in the number of subjects for which raw marks were accepted over the last 3 years. Importantly, the number of subjects for which marks were adjusted mainly upward decreased significantly from 16 in 2022 to 6 in 2023. As mentioned, this is a signal of a maturing system. Again, there's a very long list of subjects and standardization decisions, adjustment decisions that you will find in the document that will be handed to you. If I can then read the approval statement for the release of the NSC results presented by the Department of Basic Education. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the National Senior Certificate Examinations. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 National Senior Certificate Examinations administered by the Department of Basic Education. EXCO of Council therefore approves the release of the DBE November 2023 Senior Certificate Examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the DBE is required to block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of the DBE investigations and verification by Umalusi. Umalusi is concerned about the recurring instances of printing and packaging errors in question papers and the ongoing practice of group copying. The DBE is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit an improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the DBE for conducting a successful examination on such a large scale. I think it is important and necessary at this point to conclude this section by reminding the public about a recent Umalusi study titled International Benchmarking of the National Senior Certificate. The study was conducted by ECTIS, formerly known as the UK Matric, on behalf of Umalusi, and what it did was benchmark the National Senior Certificate against 5 international qualifications. These were the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, some of you may know this as the IB program, the Kenyan Certificate of Secondary Education, the New South Wales Higher School Certificate, the Zimbabwean Forms 5 to 6 Advanced Level, and Cambridge Assessment International Education, AS and A levels. The overall conclusion of the study is that the NSC provides its holders with an internationally comparable level of education. The full report, if you're interested, is accessible on the Umalusi website. To turn then to the overall picture of 2023 end-of-year examinations. Based on the foregoing information, the overall picture for 2023 end-of-year national examination is that the examinations were written by 1,150,304 candidates, with the NSC candidates contributing 80% towards that total. The finer details are of course provided in the table which you will find in your document. And this presents the qualifications offered by the DBE, the DHET, IEB and SACAI, together with the number of candidates in each group. Of the 510 subjects resulted that were presented for standardization, raw marks were accepted in 335 of those. That's 66% of the subjects. Generally, upward adjustments were made in 84 or 16%, and generally downward adjustments were made in 91 or 18% of the subjects resulted. Umalusi has noted specific issues that require attention of the relevant assessment bodies. Whereas these issues will be included in the assessment body's specific composite reports, it is worth mentioning that a high absenteeism rate has once again been noted in some of the subjects associated with the GETC examinations. Similarly, this qualification continues to record a high failure rate. This raises the question about the levels of support that candidates find in their learning and examination preparation experiences. In conclusion then, Umalusi congratulates all the assessment bodies for successfully conducting and managing the 2023 end-of-year examinations. As evidenced by the numbers presented, the examination system is large and complex. It's not an easy task to ensure that each one of the over 1.15 million candidates across the length and breadth of South Africa receives the correct examination paper at the right time and in the correct venue. that individual scripts are collected and marked, that marks are verified and then transferred onto the computer system and submitted to Umalusi for standardization purposes. That standardization decisions are implemented on the system and that learners are resulted in a timely manner. All this done with proper attention to the integrity of the process. This is certainly most deserving of our commendation. I wish to thank all the members of the Assessment Standards Committee under the chairpersonship of Professor Loyiso Jita and his deputy, Professor Mabokang Monapule Mapesela, who worked tirelessly to ensure delivery of credible outcomes. This committee of 15 members, constituted by some of the finest minds drawn from various universities and research institutes in South Africa, is always willing to sacrifice valuable time during the festive season to ensure the best outcome for the South African learners. I extend words of appreciation to my colleagues in Exco of Council for investing time to consider the reports presented by the 4 assessment bodies and Umalusi, which led to the approval of the 8 sets of results. I also thank the CEO of Umalusi, Dr. Rakometsi, his management team, and staff for the excellent work that they do behind the scenes. The CEO and his team work tirelessly and under extreme time pressure to deliver the best for the country. Their commitment has ensured that South Africa's education system is anchored in quality, credibility, and integrity. Umalusi congratulates all the learners who have succeeded in 2023 examinations. Words of appreciation are also due to their teachers, their parents, their guardians, and all those who have supported the learners throughout their journey, including the maintenance and cleaning staff at our schools and colleges, the taxi drivers, and the other public and private transport drivers who take care in bringing our learners to school, and the community members who show concern for the learning of our children. We thank all role players for ushering the class of 2023 to this important day. To those learners who have not succeeded, there is another chance for you in this year's examinations. So please do not give up, work harder, and you will do better this year. I wish you all the best for 2024, and I thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Professor Balim. Thanks for reading the statement. Your colleagues, we have now reached a stage where we'll open the floor for you to interact with both Professor Balim and Dr. Mafura Kometsi on the issues that they have raised up to this point. In terms of how we will do this, you put your hand up, and if you're seated next to one of these mics, you just turn it on. If it's red, it means you are the first one to speak. If it's green, it means you are the second or third in line. We also have this additional microphone here. The problem with the roving one is that people on the online platforms it doesn't pick it up. So let's try by all means to use these ones. Thank you very much. Can I see the hands of the colleagues who would like to raise questions? There's number 1 there. Members of the media, please, members of the media. Let me just explain the protocol. So we do have guests here, just for them to observe the process, but the floor will be open for the members of the media. And if there are issues, we can take them after this, between Umalusi and the colleagues from assessment bodies. Yes, and then before you speak, you just tell us who you are and which media house you represent. There was a first hand over there. Can I ask my colleagues just to help me identify just turn on your mic, and then you will follow each other in that sequence. Thank you. And then once you've asked your question, you turn it off.
Or is it red? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I'm vertically challenged, so you can't see me from behind the pole. But anyway, thank you. My name is Nozintombi Mia from SABC TV News. Thank you so much for the presentation, Dr. Mafu, as well as Professor Yunus. I just have questions of clarity. First, two questions of clarity. Professor Yunus, I know you said this 2 or 3 times, but I'm still struggling to get the number of candidates. How many candidates were there? I know it's 1 million something, but after the 1 million, the number just gets jumbled. So if we can just get clarity on that.
Reading it is more difficult.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Reading it is more difficult.
It's more difficult. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Maybe can I just interrupt? Can I ask your colleagues to distribute the statements to your colleagues? Because the numbers are clarified in the statements.
But I'll give you the broad number.
The broad number, thank you, that would be very appreciated. And then, as well, to clarify and summarize, you've approved basically the private and the public sector with certain concerns that you've highlighted. You've broken it down very well, thank you very much. But could you just sort of summarize it so we can get a really nice soundbiteable soundbite, right? Okay. And then, this may or may not be material, but if you hadn't approved 1 or 2 of the bodies that presented, what then happens? You've approved all of them, that's great, so there's no problem. But if you hadn't approved, what then would have been the next steps? Those are the 2 clarity questions. Regarding the issues about the errors in the question papers, right? Please educate me, correct me where I'm misunderstanding. But is it not Umalusi's job to make sure that those errors themselves are fixed and eliminated pre, during, and post the exam periods? I mean, it's fine that you will, after the fact, raise the issues, but in October you said you were ready. But it does seem disingenuous if you're saying you're ready and you're highlighting issues after the fact. Thank you very much. I don't know how to switch the thing off, but if somebody can.
Thank you. Alvira Mdila from ENCA. Firstly, you mentioned the 11 arrests by South African Police Service for people selling and, well, the buying of fake matric certificates. Could you maybe indicate how long these people have been operating and if you have an idea of just how many fraudulent matric certificates they've sold? Secondly, you also mentioned the unaccredited institutions. Just wondering what's going to happen then to those learners that enrolled and wrote their matric examination through those unaccredited institutions, and maybe why isn't anything done about these? I mean, they do operate in buildings. I'm assuming they are there in person. Why isn't anything, law enforcement authorities, taking better charge in that? Also, Dr. Mafu, you mentioned unresolved matters. I'm not sure what you were alluding to. Could you maybe expand on those unresolved matters that you touched on? Thank you.
Yeah, we'll return to you.
We'll get to you. Thank you. I guess I'll take the first set of questions, and the questions from the ENCA colleague will be dealt with by Dr. Rakumetse. The numbers question. So the National Senior Certificate was written by, I'm going to give it to you in thousands, okay, 919,000 candidates, of which 898 came from the Department of Basic Education. The rest were from the IEB and SACAI. And I guess that's the big number, okay? The other qualifications, the NCV, the N2, N3, the GTC, when added to the 919,000, gives 1.15 million candidates in total. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Your question about succinctly, I'm not sure that I can succinctly capture the statements. I mean, I think the point is that the 4 examining authorities subjected or issued examinations to candidates, the process was not without problems. Okay, there are errors of omission and of commission that will happen in a system as large as that. It is probably unrealistic to expect that if you're administering exams to 1.1 million students around the country, that it will go completely without error. So we do expect some of that error to occur. What is important is that Umalusi wants to know about it. That's an important point. Also, we've determined that given the nature of the errors and irregularities, they were not of a systemic nature to warrant a non-release of the exams, of the examinations. That's really the point. I guess that captures the statement. Your question about what if not approved. Indeed, there is one exam that was not approved, and that was the Matric theory. So in that case, the irregularity was so large that the Assessment Standards Committee felt it was not capable of standardizing these examination results, because clearly there was an irregularity that was too large. And of course, in this case, as I mentioned, the examining authority, the DHET, has decided to ask students to resit that exam. And that will happen in February, and we will correct the process. For the rest of the examinations, the ASC found that there were no systemic errors and that we could, in fact, arrive at conclusions. This is an important point, because what we are not making a statement about today is whether or not students have passed. The rules of progress, the rules of to satisfy the qualification, etc., that is in the domain of the examining authorities. And that process is yet to unfold this week, I expect. What we've decided, made pronouncements on, are the individual subjects that the examining authorities administer. Your point about errors in papers, I think the question needs to be answered in the negative, but your question is useful because it makes an illustrative point. As Quality Council, Umalusi's task is to ensure that the examining authorities follow the correct processes. The detail of errors in the exam papers is not for Umalusi's consideration. So Umalusi will ask, did you have an external examiner? Did you have a second person look at this paper? Did you go through the process? In some cases, Umalusi may look at samples of exam papers, but this is not Umalusi saying that we pronounce correctness of all the exam papers. Okay? That's an important point. The second thing is, there's a number of slips between the cup and the lip. After the exam paper is approved, a lot of the errors we find are subsequent errors. So, for example, the printing errors. You take the correct exam paper, you send it to the printer, and a subscript is dropped, or part of the diagram is dropped, or somebody forgot that the exam question requires that the diagram be in color, because the questions refers to the red blocks, but you print the paper in black and white. And so those are the sorts of slips that we've been concerned about. Packaging errors, one exam question paper ending up in the wrong package, and a student turning an exam paper and saying, but this is not the exam I came here to write, etc. So these are the sorts of errors that happen after papers are approved. And as I say, Umalusi is not the primary custodian of correctness of exam papers. Dr. Rakometsi, you may want to add, but certainly I thought the ENC questions were for you. Yeah.
Okay. Now, thank you very much, Professor Balim. I would just want to add on the things that Prof has already said. What would happen if the results are not approved? Prof has given a scenario of where that happens. But say, for instance, we detect systemic irregularities that run throughout the system. I can only theorize as to what would happen because the actual context will dictate what we have to do. You know, for instance, if the marks of the learners were inflated at the marking center, we may say we don't approve until a remark is done and until we can vouch for the correctness of the mark. I think you understand that. So I can only theorize about different scenarios. So the circumstances may come in different formats. However, we've got the right not to approve where there have been irregularities, like in the instance that Prof has mentioned, and in the other worst case scenarios that I can only theorize about. And then the corrective measures would be dictated too by the nature of the irregularity that we are worried about. So I can only theorize. And Prof is right, we are running a very big system. Just to illustrate the point, the people who write examinations is from, if you know the geography of South Africa, from Cape Town to Messina, from Springbok to Richards Bay. And they write in villages, in cities, and in towns, all over. There is no way in which, when you run such a big system, there could be no errors, no irregularities. Umalusi, during the state of readiness report, cannot vouch that there's no one who's going to copy. You know, there's no one who's going to open a wrong question paper. These things will happen. But what we are happy about is that the numbers of irregularities have gone down this year. And the overall picture also that there were no papers that were leaked is also very important for us to say the system is improving. But for 1.something million learners, and we have an error-free examination, is what we are trying to emphasize here. And what is key also is that when those errors do occur, do we have systems to take the remedial measures? And Umalusi has got systems in place together with the assessment bodies to take the necessary corrective measures. Right. Regarding the fraudsters that have been arrested, and we are not even sure that all the fraudsters have been arrested. We cannot say how long they've been operating. We're not there when they started. And we cannot even say how many fraudulent certificates they have issued. We cannot say. I mean, they would know. Maybe the court is going to ask them to say, how many did you produce? When did you start operating? We will not know. We will not know. But what gives us comfort is the fact that the SAPS has taken these matters seriously and people are beginning to be arrested. And that sends the correct signal. Now, what happens to the students who write at unaccredited institutions? They will not get their results. However, that situation was corrected between Umalusi and the assessment bodies, because where an institution is not accredited, the assessment bodies ask for a concession, and we look at the circumstances and we grant that concession, and all those loopholes have been closed as we approve the results now. I think you understand that. Right. Unresolved matters that I mentioned. There are learners who have been found to be in groups of learners who were doing group copying or any other irregularity. They are unresolved matters because further investigations have to be conducted. Which investigations may clear some students say, no, but this one is not guilty. He or she must get her results. And the investigations will confirm that indeed this candidate was involved in this kind of scam or chicanery. Therefore, he or she cannot get her results. That's why I said we've got unresolved issues. That is why those students' results, as Prof has indicated, will be blocked until the investigations are concluded. Thank you very much, Mr. Potter.
Thank you, CEO. Let's open the floor for the second round. You can the first one to go.
All right. Katlel Sohoto from Kaya 959. CEO, just in terms of the Before, when you announced the state of readiness, you had outlined your engagements with ESCOM in terms of assisting learners to be able to prepare and study. And I mean that judgment that we saw on the 1st of December declaring load shedding unconstitutional came after. So in terms of your sense as Umalusi in regards to the effects of load shedding, perhaps not so much during the exams, because as the Minister Angie Motshekga had outlined, when learners write, they don't necessarily need electricity then, but in the preparedness, and I guess going back to your state of readiness before, do you have a sense of what the negative impact might have been, and does it in any way inform the decision now that actually results are ready to be released?
Good day, everyone. My name is Zinzi from the SABC. Thank you again, Dr. Mafu and Prof. Yunus, for your presentation and answers. Actually, most of my questions were answered in the first round, but I just want clarity on what qualifies as systematic irregularities or errors. And also, I just want to find out about the DHT, the concerns you had about the absenteeism there. Do you know what were the causes for this?
You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no, Katejo, the correct statement is that the Department of Basic Education spoke to ESCOM, not Umalusi. We're just reporting what the department has done and the commitment of the department, of ESCOM to the department. I need to indicate that from the evidence that we have, load shedding has not impacted negatively on these examinations. Maybe because the load shedding has not been as regular as previously, and also that if you go to the different exam centers, you'll find that the schools have procured generators. I've visited a few centers where that is the case, and the principals will indicate that they've either bought or rented generators for the exams. So as things stand, we are happy that load shedding has not been disruptive with these examinations, and we are ready, therefore, to approve the results. I might have missed the tail end of your question, but the Prof will take care of that. See, on what we mean by systemic irregularities, it is when irregularities have affected the whole system. A compromised question paper that was leaked before the exam was written, people inflating marks when they are marking, just to make the learners look good. That is systemic. It's system-wide. That is why we'll then have to take remedial measures to say this is systemic, and depending on the circumstances, we may decide to say they rewrite, or we may put systems in place to remedy the situation such that the results remain authentic. So systemic, it means it runs system-wide, the irregularity, and we don't have evidence of systemic irregularities with these examinations. Hence, Professor Balim has, across the different assessment bodies, approved the release of the results, with a few results of some learners where the investigations are still pending, blocked until further notice.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Katero, your question related to learner preparation in addition to examination conditions. And of course, it goes to in some ways to the point, the question that Zinzi raised about systemic errors or systemic effects, if I could use it that. So, for example, one of the things we really kept an eye out was for the effect of COVID. Did we see patterns of performance during the COVID years? In some cases, yes, we did. Did we see patterns of effects of load shedding? No, we didn't. I would have expected, for example, if students were generally poorly prepared, that we would be making a lot more upward adjustments, just because students were not, in comparison to previous years, for example. It was not obvious, and we didn't see any of that. This is not to say that that learners were not disadvantaged in some aspects, and it may well require further, more detailed assessment and investigation. These are not optimal conditions under which students study. Are they the biggest impact? We're not sure. That's really the point, I guess. Yeah. So some of the other, in all of these range of possible impacts, load shedding is one of them, and we can't tell how its impact, relative impact. Which brings me to this point about DHET absenteeism, or the absenteeism in the DHET examinations. The reason we're so focused on this is that adult basic education and training is a really, really important instrument for citizens in this country, who, particularly adults, who have had their learning and education disrupted, interrupted, for whatever reason, social conditions, politics, apartheid effects, etc., etc. The IEB examination are really an important access point for people to improve their qualifications. I mean, artisan training is those of you who have come from families like that. Somebody gets access to artisan training, and that family feels the impact almost immediately. Employability goes up, and etc., etc. And so for us, the IEB examinations represent important sort of transformation moments, not only in individual family lives, but in community lives. And so the high failure rate and the high absenteeism give us cause for concern. There are people who would like to write the exam. The fact that you bother to register for the exam means that you want to. There's something that prevents you from writing that exam. It could be that you're too busy, you didn't, but then we're also asking questions about, when I decide to do an ABET exam, what kind of support can I expect? What kind of support should I expect? Is that support provided? Etc., etc. So our concern derives from the fact that we see, particularly in education, as a transformative mechanism, that it's an instrument for upliftment of community, not necessarily economically, just for access to a dignified life. And when people drop out, we ask questions about why are they not writing? Why are they not arriving? And for those who do arrive, why is it that so few of them are passing? Well, these are the sort of questions Umalusi doesn't have the answer. They're really questions we are directing to the examining authority and saying, we think that these are important questions that require further assessment and understanding. And that's really the reason that we raise this as a concern.
Okay. Thank you for the comprehensive. Rakometsi, I see. Spiwa, please do help me with the identification of hands, but just put on the mic and go ahead.
Hi, good morning. It's Prega Govender from News 24. I'm quite keen to find out on the issue of the group copying. We've got 945 candidates, 763 in KZN and 163 in Mpumalanga. Would you be able to perhaps divulge the districts where this was actually confined to, and perhaps also the subjects that were involved? And then the other question is also keen to find out about irregularities regarding the IEB exams. We haven't spoken about them. Is there perhaps a specific number of irregularities that you would be able to help us with? And the last question on the DHET, I noticed that officials were implicated in irregularities. Any details on that perhaps? Number of officials, which subjects, or which subject offerings? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Prega. Yeah, no, the cases of group copying in KZN and Mpumalanga have been reported to us. However, the format in which we receive the reports do not give the specifics regarding the district and the subject. So that it will be the DBE as an assessment body that will be able to give those specifics. The report served first of all in the National Irregularities Committee of the DBE, and when it is prepared for us, they just give us the numbers like we have given them to you to say group copying in these two provinces, and these are the numbers without specifying the district and the subject. As a result, we are not able to offer that information. The irregularities with the IEB are what we presented here. They were very few and negligible. It will be a learner who has forgotten to hand over the cell phone, and then that is detected during the course of the examination. They are negligible, and they are very small indeed in number. That is why when you listened carefully to the statement of Professor Balim, he commended the IEB for running a good examination. With the DHET, regarding the officials involved, also we don't have that information, that detail. And I don't remember from a statement saying, which one is that?
Is the official implicated in the selling?
Oh, yeah. It is the one official involved in the selling of certificates, and I said a diploma certificate here. So the details we don't have, we only know it from the report that we got from the DHET and from the media. But as to the name of the official, that one official we do not know. We have to be following the case as it will be panning out in our courts of law. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I should also mention that when I read the approval statements, in the case of IEB and Sakai, I said that the statement read that the results of those implicated must be nullified, whereas in the case of the DHET and DBE, the statement reads that the results must be blocked. And the reason is that IEB and Sakai had very few instances. They'd already been investigated, and the students were found wanting who were implicated, and those results will be nullified. In the case of DBE and DHET, investigations are ongoing, and that's the reason. But they really were not, were small. And you know, there is the student who comes in with crib note and gets caught out, and or a student with a smart watch or something. And when they found out, their results are nullified. Yeah. So and those investigations have been completed. Yeah. Thank you. I also wanted to make a point, perhaps, about the fact that group copying invariably involves staff, invigilator or something. And so investigations include staff members as well. And from previous years, we've in fact had a headmaster dismissed. Yeah, so the department takes this very seriously, and that investigation includes the staff members who may have been complicit in the group copying. Yeah, thank you.
Just a last one. In terms of your announcement that there have been no paper leakages, is this the first time that this has ever happened? And I guess the significance of it?
No, I think the last time we saw a paper leak was in 2021. I think I'm right. Huh? So there have been sort of other forms of attempts at chicanery, shall I call it that. There was a case where somebody started a WhatsApp group where after the exam paper was issued, somebody sent text messages of solutions. So again, there was complicit behavior and that sort of thing. But I don't think the system has actually tightened up quite nicely. And let me say, thanks to officials mainly in the DBE's response, but also thanks to the security services, both as advisors, to be preventative, but also to be curative in the way in which we deal with this. So I think the system is getting it right, yeah. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Program Director, Mr. Leporter. As we come to the end of the media briefing, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the following. The Umalusi Council, under the leadership of Professor Balim, for their invaluable guidance and commitment to maintaining the integrity of our education system. Their expertise and oversight ensure that our standards remain robust and in the best interest of the candidates. Thanks to the various committees of Umalusi Council for playing their respective roles in all the processes. I would also like to thank the CEO, Dr. Mafu Rakobeti, for steering this process from the start until this point. A special word of appreciation goes to the diligent Umalusi team for working tirelessly and against stringent timelines to get us to this stage. Your commitment to maintaining the highest standards is the bedrock of our success, and we commend you for your unwavering efforts. In alignment with the timeless wisdom of the Aristotle, the philosopher, we find resonance in his assertion that, I quote, "Quality is not an act, it is a habit." I repeat, quality is not an act, it is a habit, close quote. Throughout the various processes leading up to this stage, an unwavering commitment to quality has been consistently upheld by the Umalusi team. This dedication reflects our adherence to excellence as a habitual practice. We also express our sincere gratitude to all the assessment bodies for their diligent efforts in ensuring the fulfillment of our respective mandates. Excuse me. As Helen Keller fittingly stated, I quote, "Alone we can accomplish so little. Together we can achieve so much," close quote. Thank you very much to the assessment bodies. A word of appreciation to the representatives of the media houses for covering this briefing. We acknowledge and appreciate your dedication to conveying accurate and timely information. Your role in communicating the outcomes of our quality assurance processes to the public is invaluable, and we're grateful for your professionalism. May you all have a safe journey back to your respective destination. And as Mr. Leporter has indicated, please join us for finger lunch. I think it's next door. I thank you.
Colleagues, thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Colleagues, I know that there are some who would like to interact with the chairperson and the CEO after this. Please do come speak to me and or Ntabise. Where's Ntabise? Or Spiwe, so that we know how to schedule the interviews. Thank you very much. I think lunch is just outside here. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
No, no.
Okay, Mr. Maseko, he wants to say something. Do we allow it?
No, we don't allow it.
Okay, Mr. Maseko, let's talk after this. Okay, thank you. Colleagues, the room next door is set up for us to enjoy the lunch. Thank you.
We'll use this room for lunch.